Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Ni hao, buenos dias, ese aqua. What up, though? This is Café Mélangé. Week número 6, session número 2. Sin session uno esta semana. No session uno this week. Today is essentially the first session, but it's session numero 2 because it's day numero 2 of the sessions. So anyways, with that said, we got about 15, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. I got dos cosas to share. And I don't, to be honest, I don't know if I'm able to get through both of them today. So actually, I'm gonna share one cosa and maybe save the next one for mañana, God willing. So the thing I had to share today is an update on brethren that are involved in previous projects that I do on the interweb, on the YouTube joint. So specifically in the context of spirituality and Mélangé, but also pluralism. There were two specific projects that I organized a number of years ago. The first one was called something about it was an intro to religions, and there are only a few brethren that participate on that. 3 that I can recall of at the moment. One from an uncle from Jainism, a brother from Hinduism, and another brother from an elder brother from Judaism and Sufism, who each talk about their spiritual experience. And after that project, not necessarily a follow project, but a subsequent project from that was called Mixed Spirit. I think it was called. What it was called. And in that project, I'm trusting that the mic is working at this point, so I'm trying not to block it like I do before. So in that project, Mixed Spirits, I interview specifically Mélangé brethren. In the first iteration, it's not necessarily in the context of being Mélangé. It's just in the context of being pluralistic and sharing an introduction to the specific religion. I can include myself in that intro because I think I shared an intro about myself on that first project. The second project was specifically Mélangé. And there are over half a dozen brethren that I talk with, that I interview, chop it up with on that project. And so, again, this is a number of years ago. Wow. This is like 5 years ago, 6 years ago was the most, when the second project was completed. And the further project for that was probably maybe a year or two before that. So it's been a while. And things like this, what I've come to recognize and experience is that people tend to go in their own ways. And people who are doing something tough at a moment, maybe for a few months, maybe even for a year, maybe even for a couple of years, eventually kind of often have the tendency of moving on to something else. Maybe connected, related, but still different. And when people have relationships, communication, and conversations, it can seem like, oh wow, that's tight. That's like community right there. That's like building. There seems to be like a permanence because it resonates so much. But in actuality, it's like it's only there for a brief period, and people continue on. So people find other priorities. People progress in life, mature, evolve. People settle down and change focus additionally. And so having these conversations is increasingly meaningful, but also to be appreciated for what it is at that moment. Now, that being said, what I emphasize in what I do comprehensively is relationship. That comes from our ancient traditions, particularly our native traditions, the notion of relationship. And part of being in a relationship is beyond just being aware of each other, acknowledging each other, and communicating with each other, but like continuing the connection and continuing the interaction with each other. That's part of the nature of relationship as well. Full stop. So that being said, what I plan to do is share an update on each of the brethren as best I can. And to be honest, I didn't write a list. I have to go off memory about who I talk with. on each of these projects, but I plan to give an update on each one, the best I know, on each one, uh, to also strengthen the sense of relationship, particularly in Mélangé, and the activism, the community building, and additionally that is involved in our experience. So, with the brethren that I involve in the projects that I do on the internet, and additionally, it's like, yo, it's not just a matter of like hitting quit type shit situations, like continuing. So here we go. The first project, the name escapes me again, Mixed in Depth or something like that. But anyways, those tres brothers that I mentioned before. The first one, the uncle Kushoji from Jain Tradition. Very generous interview. So I speak with him most recently, maybe a few months ago. I've been meaning to actually give him a call, to be honest with you. And so um, in recent years, he experiences some challenges in the political climate, the hostilities, and he mentions that. Well, I ain't going to give all the business away, but he communicates some difficulties being experienced, and he actually goes to India because it's increasingly hospitable and supportive for what he's doing. He's also um, uh, elder, and is dealing with the conditions that come along that experience. So, but overall, he's doing well. I met with him maybe a year ago. We had lunch together. And again, like I said, we most recently talked maybe a few months ago, and maybe sent an email it most recently, maybe about a month or two ago. So, anyways, that's the update I have to share with on him. Uh, the next brother in that first project is Jacob, um, and he is the brother from Israel and Sufism. And so I most recently talked with him this past week. Um, he's observing Sukkot. He attends services for the High Holy Days. Um, and as I'm getting into this session, I'm reminded like, yo, I don't need to be sharing everybody's business out, putting it out on Front Street like I do myself. So I have to be careful of what I say. So he's looking at moving into a new place, and going through the process of that. And he communicates some increased health within recent years. He's an elder brother, and so he's dealing with the experiences that come with that. Um, so he's always joking, always humorous, and that's part of his the gift that he shares in his life. So that's what he's doing at this moment. The brother, um, Akshay, um, Akshay from Hindu tradition. Um, I actually see him maybe 2 weeks ago in the village for a brief moment. And it's maybe been, we talked with each other within the past maybe 6 months or so, maybe past a year or so, uh, at further length. But he's doing well. He's in a relationship, and attending to that, he continues on with his activism. He focuses on transportation rights for public transport commuters here in the Cuyahoga area. And he's involved in a number of different things. So he's staying involved, very dedicated to the seva um, that he practices in this life. So that's an update on Akshay. So that's the first project. Update on me. Check the script. Second project, Mixed Spirits. I'll begin actually with the people that I have the least amount of information about. First is I'll say actually first I'll say is Michelle. Michelle actually I met as we said in our convo in the session a few years ago. We met in South Africa, in Cape Town, the land of Hausa people, and so that was the first occasion that we actually talked with each other. Since then, and we want to reconnect, and then but the thing is, I have an email address for her. I'm uncertain if it's still accurate, if it's still the active one that she utilizes. Um, but I'm without a phone number for her, and so uh, and I'm off of Facebook for the past 3 years, 3 years at this point. So I've abstained from communicating with her on Facebook. So I have less information about an update on her. But from what we discussed in our combo, she's married. She's got a daughter. Her daughter is preparing for further education, and she's handling her business in the Midwest, and so she's appreciative for the benefits that she receives, that she experiences in life. The next sister is Paulette, and so again, Paulette and I kind of connect on Facebook. It's been decades since we see each other in high school, as we discussed in the combo. And again, I'm without even, I think, an email for her. And so again, the most recent occasion that we communicated was in that conversation. So that was a few years ago. But per that conversation, she's progressing with her family, married, and her child, her daughter, in the big country, south of the plains on this land, and uh, her husband is involved in music, and additionally, and so she's a bright spirit, um, that continues in this realm. So those are two that I have probably the least information on. Then I'll just go continue with who comes to mind. I'll continue on with Nate Puppets. So Nate is a brother here in the Cuyahoga area, and I most recently see him maybe a few months ago. We actually see each other on the bus, and he's working actually nearby where I'm situated at the moment at the well, I won't say all his business, but he's working at a community center, and he's enjoying it. He appreciates it. He's before that he had some difficulty finding a gig, so he's appreciative of being that. He's been at that place for a while. He does his puppetry. It's been a while since I see him in the village, which is where we usually see each other before and through the years. And so, anyways, that's an update on Nate. Uh, Vanessa. Vanessa. Actually, after the convo that we had, the convo that she and I have on the mixed spirits joint, we actually see each other at the Parliament of the World's Religions, probably later that year, thereabouts, maybe a little bit over a year after that, and so we connect there. Actually, interview her on that occasion as well, and her and another brother from the movement, and we keep in touch periodically over the years. She actually transitions from her employment at the university where she was at that moment in NorCal, in the land of the Paiute, to SoCal. And so she's at a prestigious university in SoCal. And people call me out on, wait a minute, I thought you said universities are the bastion of class apartheid in this country. Yes. We can still make recognitions and descriptions and additionally. So, love and peace to all. But she's in SoCal now, and she's her her title is increasingly authoritative within the administration at the university. Um, so again, I'm not trying to blow up people's spots and be too specific or whatever, but I'll just leave it at that for all the 0 of 200 people who are online at the moment. All right, let's officially. Um, so then, yeah, leave it at that. Then I will say Kalina. As much as I know, Kalina is progressing with her project of Big Talk. Since the convo that we have with Mixed Spirits, she continues on. She gets a government program funding with a program, and she travels abroad. She goes to a number of different places in Asia and in Central Asia, and additionally, and she gets some traction with her project called Big Talk, and so she is progressing successfully with that, as much as I know. at this point. Um, so that is positive. Um, Next, I'll say is Bradley. Uh, Brad, Bradley is a brother from Manchester. Yeah, I won't make the football joke. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna leave that alone. We discussed that in the combo. So, anyways, he's since the conversation recently on his hair product company. So he does. He makes hair products for mixed people with mixed hair, mixed people with mixed hair, and so he's kind of focusing his activism and efforts and concentration on that endeavor. And so he made a number of posts through a number of different platforms. Again, I'm off of Facebook, so communication is competitively uh, adjusted accordingly. And I guess the most recent occasion he and I communicated is by actually connecting via LinkedIn, maybe just a few weeks ago. So I'm intending to reach out to him again and see what's up. There's other people that I interview. And if I miss anybody, it's going to be frustrating. All right. Well, again, I only got so many minutes to do this joint, so checking if there's anybody else. I said Michelle, Paulette, uh, Nate, Vanessa, Kalina, Bradley. I guess there's one other person, which would be Philip. Philip, who is the author of the 100% Mix Show, the founder of the 100% Mix Show, and so he and I most recently communicate, maybe past week or two, via social media. But he actually is involved. He actually participates in the first session of these joints. Week uno, session numero uno. But he also communicates, as he does in that conversation a few weeks ago, that that specific experience that I just mentioned of uh, um, transitioning, adjusting, progressing in life, priorities changing, um, and the need within our Mélangé community of increased support for brethren who are dedicated towards the cause. Um, so one thing to keep in mind is that, again, there are over 118 million Mélangé brethren, people who proactively, like directly identify as being mixed in on the earth. That's larger than all but 12 nations of Earth. And that's also widely underestimated because that's only with 30 nations reporting those statistics. And it's perceived that the number is actually probably at least three times that much, which would make it larger than all but two nations on Earth, China and India. And so there's a lot of benefit in being mindful and attentive and supportive of this experience by benefit for Mélangé people, but benefit for the earth. I'm getting warnings of the memory getting wonky, so I'm gonna leave it at that. I was gonna also, well, we'll see what we do with this live stream. Oh yeah, with the live stream, still doing this joint, still on it. With the live stream, the audio seems to kind of go in and out sometimes, or the reception seems to stagger it sometimes. There's a pause. So I'm also recording this again, but I didn't post the recording of it. I haven't posted anything actually. since the session a week ago, but I'm getting ready to get on to the next joint. And it's actually going comparatively well. We've been doing the mixed heritage discussion group for over a month at this point. Again, the average attendance is 3 to 4. We're seeing what the post honeymoon experience is like. This right here is the second thing I was going to share. This is a calendar, and it has a list of the observances, the traditional observances, religious, cultural, and otherwise. Um, Religious, cultural, traditional observances within the many different calendars of Earth. So I've been working on this for years and keeping track of it just in my spiritual diplomacy, but also on my spiritual path. And there's a consideration that in emphasizing, basing what Phil was talking about before about it not the Mélangé experience not being too important to people, and having other priorities and continuing on. There's consideration of like cultivating that sense of that tangibility of being Mélangé. So that's not just some vague cultural identification or political identification or phenotypic or genetic identification, but cultural, even spiritual, religious, and additionally. But there needs to be tangibility. It's not. There has to be like a story or stories. There has to be rituals. There has to be regular observances and practices that are that are unique to the Mélangé experience. And so I've worked on that through the years, and there are actually I do have a number of ceremonies that I've constructed a liturgy to that speaks to that effect. With different emphases, emphasizing different ethnic experiences, but also one that's specifically universally Mélangé, honoring our ancestors, affirming our ancestors. And so that's part of it. But in addition to it, it's also recognizing the traditions that we come from and continuing to honor that and fulfilling or allaying the fears of our ancestors and our forebears and our relatives by saying we do honor that. So for those of us who have increasingly onus of observing specific traditions and rituals and specific traditions, there being still awareness of the aggregate and a connection of it through something like this. So this is just the first month of the calendar. What I was going to do today was go through the year and month by month and just recite the different observances within each calendar. It might seem very daunting, but these are just like the major ones from about a dozen traditions, and a lot of the writing is just repetition because a lot of the observances are for multiple days. But there's a yearly cycle, there's a monthly cycle, and there's a weekly cycle within our respective traditions. And so when we attune ourselves with this, we get a feeling of what it's like to be an earthling, like what it's like to be from the earth aggregately, and have a mindfulness of the earth, so that even though we may not be experts in any one specific tradition per se, we have a knowledge that is genuine and that it's helpful in connecting and strengthening our relationships with brethren from those specific religious traditions. So again, it starts with like being mindful, being aware of what it is. So what I was intending to do was go through just the list of these. At this point, I'm out of. It's a little bit. It would take too long, so I'm not even going to do the list. This is a 15-month a 15-month calendar, so it's a year plus 3 months. So God willing, what I'll do mañana is do this joint, and maybe this Thursday I'll share a story or something like that for the lighthearted aspect of it, the lighthearted session for the week. But do the list of this joint, and then maybe give a brief description of what each of these observances is. My knowledge out, to be honest, is increasingly strong for some compared to others. So I want to be balanced in what I present. So maybe I'll do a list first and then see where I go with that, because I haven't even yet to read the list, and maybe the list will take 15-20 minutes as it is. So maybe I'll focus increasingly on the monthly and the weekly observances, since they are increasingly frequent. So there's a session right here. But yeah, that's the idea. Is having some tangibility with multiculturalism, and not just even multiculturalism, but just being of the earth, and being Mélangé. And rather than just it being an individual experience, um, it being a collective experience that's emphasized, that's strengthened through collective ritual, collective gathering, socialization, and practices. And so music, storytelling are part of that, but it's also beneficial to be attuned with the cycles of nature, of the universe, the soleil, the earth, the moon, um, the, the movements, the seasons, um, the harmony, and the ancient wisdom that's connected with these, that strengthens our relationship and our progression within these elements and within these movements, and particularly as Mélangé, and for our own benefit, but also for the benefit of the earth as well. So I'll leave it at that. Mañana. Hasta mañana. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Zaijian. Adios. Taitaris. Esempin. Asamo. Wakile. Fed. One love and peace.